It's going to be all about exponent rules and how to use them. Now, when we use exponent rules, we're really talking about 5 basic rules that you need to know. First of all, looking at this 3x squared, we know that these are all different parts. The number out in front is going to be called the coefficient. The coefficient. The x is going to be the variable, which is usually just a letter. And then the number on top is called an exponent. So the way I would say this is 3 times x to the second power, or 3x squared. So the first rule that you need to know is the product rule. This states that if you have the same variable and you have exponents, when these two terms are being multiplied together, you can add the exponents. So for example, I have x cubed times x squared. If I add those two exponents together, I'm going to get 3 plus 2, and then 3 plus 2 is going to give me 5. So x to the 5th power would be my final answer. When you're using the product rule, remember that you have to have the same variables, and then the exponents can be added if you're multiplying in the middle. Now, the opposite of that is going to be the quotient rule. The quotient rule states that if you have the same variable and you're dividing, the exponents have to be subtracted. So let's do a quick example of that. Let's do x to the 5th power divided by x cubed. This is going to give me x to the 5 minus 3 power, and 5 minus 3 is going to give me 2. So my answer is x squared. That's the quotient rule. Quotient means that you're dividing. Next is the power rule. Notice that I have x to the a power on the inside of the parentheses, but I also have an exponent on the outside. So if I have two exponents, I have an exponent raised to an exponent, then I'm going to multiply the two exponents together like this. To give you a quick example, if I had x cubed and I squared everything, now I have those two exponents, I multiply them. So 3 times 2 is going to give me 6. The next rule that we're going to talk about is the negative exponent rule. This one states that if your exponent is negative, then you can write it as a positive number in the denominator of the fraction. Once you reach the denominator, you can take your negative exponent and make it into a positive exponent, with 1 always being on top. So as an example, if I have x to the negative 4th power, I can rewrite that as 1 over x to the 4th power. And that's completely acceptable. That's the negative exponent rule. And you can always do that when your exponent is negative. The last rule that we're going to talk about is the zero power rule. This states that if you have a variable raised to the 0 power, then your answer will always be 1, except the case where x is equal to 0. Whenever you have 0 to the 0 power, that is undefined. There's simply no answer for that. But if I take any variable or any number other than 0 and I raise it to the 0 power, I'll always get 1. So for example, x to the 0 power is 1. I have y to the 0 power is 1. I have 3 to the 0 power is equal to 1. And if I have a negative number, I need to make sure that I put it in parentheses first before I raise it to the 0 power. So negative 5 to the 0 power is going to give me 1. But if the negative is on the outside and I don't put it inside the parentheses, then I'm going to get a negative 1, because the negative is going to move over with the positive 1. So those are the 5 exponent rules, and I hope that helps.